Hello, my name is Xavier Jefferson, and today for my driving presentation, I am going to show off my teleportation mechanic, and also the secondary mechanic I implemented was called the random tile effect, who originally was by Jason Faria. I hope I'm pronouncing his last name right. So for this presentation, I'm going to start off with it being more of like a levels in actual game. So for the first one, I started off trying to show off how the box can be moved. And for the player character, I also changed it to look more like a robot. And I wanted to make it seem like the robot was like in a toy, a kid's room or like a toy factory, but I didn't have the time to do that. So I just stuck with the plain base. And so the first level, you move the box to learn that mechanic, and then you move on to the next level to the wind tile. The second one, still learning the move mechanic with the boxes and learning about stamina and how the stamina helps you know that how much time you have left to move, or how much stamina you have left to move the boxes in the game. And then the third level, I introduced teleport pads to the player, so they can understand that now they can teleport through through that pad. And on this pad, you can step on. When you step on it, it turns blue, and when you step off, it goes back to yellow. For the fourth level, this is when I decided to introduce the concept of the blocks being able, or the boxes being able to teleport as well. Then in this last final level, this is where I introduced the second mechanic with my teleportation mechanic, which is the random effect tile, which where once stepped on, you get an effect, which for this one, we got the unlucky effect, which brought up the red word that said unlucky, which 10% of the stamina is depleted from the character, which affects how many times they can push the box in this level. Now there's a second one. Got unlucky again, lose another percentage of stamina, which affects how many times you can push the box. Then we hit the box to teleporter, boom boom, bada bing, and it leveled over. Um, as far as for the second mechanic for the blueprint for it, well, there were two blueprints for it, which was the blueprint for the random tile and the blueprint for the procedure random tile, which basically sets the variables for certain things that are connected with the random tile. So to start off, you would on event on entered for the player, you connect Ms. Valid to a branch, and if true, the tile has an effect. Now, if the statement is false, then it says sorry, no luck, which basically means that tile has no effect at all, or the tile doesn't give you anything, either negative or positive, and you had no luck in receiving an effect. If true, you head over to the next branch, which condition is a minimum of 0 and a maximum of 100, which is connected to the positive percentage, and it's greater than or equal to the 0 and 100. And this comes for covers the how often the positive effect happens. Which if I go back to my level 5 level, can see here that on the procedural random tile in the variable in the default section, we can change the percentage from which I had it at 30% for this level to 50 from well any range from 0 to 100. So it's up to you how you want it to be. Um, then after that, you either based off of what happens, you either get the true statement, which is a positive effect, or if false, you get the negative effect. And in this branch, we connect a variable called tile loses effect, which is a boolean whether it's true or false, which is then set to the number of current uses, which the current number of uses is the number of current uses is added up in this node, which is set to 0 in here. Then we go to another branch, which condition is the number of current uses and the number of total uses, which we set the default to 1, and it's greater than or equal to these two variables. And if false, nothing happens since nothing is connecting. And if true, the tile is set to tile has effect, which is marked off as not true. Uh, Coming back to these, the positive effect and the negative effect, we have two events that were made for the positive and negative effect, which for the positive effect, a string is printed, which says, yay, here's a refill, and a sound effect is played, which is then given to the active class, which is the player pawn, and I made the amount added a variable so that on the tile, if you come here once placed in this section, you can add from as much stamina you want to give back to the player for that level. And the same goes for the negative effect. You have a print string, but this one says unlucky, and the color for this one is red. Plays a sound effect connected to the player pawn like the positive effect. And for this amount, instead of it being a positive number, it's a negative. So right here you can see for positive effect you get plus 20 to your stamina, but for the negative you get negative 20. Um, Now we're gonna get into the procedural random tile. So the procedural random tile is this sphere here, and compared to Jason's blueprint, he had a cube as the a component in the default root scene, which on the level it would if it was over a tile it would cast a shadow if it was up in the air. And since it wasn't an interactable, it wasn't being interacted with in the level, I decided to delete the mesh and just make it something invisible within the level. And for the procedural tile, this is where you can set the amount of uses for these two tiles if you want them to be used 2 or 3 times, or however many times you let the player step on them. Um, we can set true or false if the tile has an effect. So that's either if we want the tile to be if the tiles to have the positive and negative effect, or if we want the tiles to have no effect at all, which would just give the player nothing, no effect at all. Uh, and like before I said, we also can set the percentage of the positive being given to the player. This variable right here states, I'm gonna go to the blueprint first before I explain that. So on an event begin play, you connect it to a get all actors class, which is connected to the tile random or the random tile we had before, and then we set it to our random tile. Then we connect it to our length tile, which gets the number of arrays in the item, and it has to be greater than 0. which is the condition. Now for a false statement, if this isn't true, it will say no random tiles on a string. And if it's true, then we set it to our current random amount, which we have is at 0 for now, or which is 0. And then we set it to an event called randomized tiles. And this event is down here, which basically we connect to our branch, and the condition for that is the total amount of random tiles, which is greater than 0. Um, and this basically is for this variable that we can change here. Since there are only two tiles, you can only go between either the numbers 1 or 2, because we can't go greater than we can't go above 2 because we only have two tiles on our level. If we had 4, then we could do 3 tiles that can have an effect and one doesn't, or we could have all 4 have an effect, or we could have 2 have an effect and 2 don't have an effect, and so on and so forth. Uh, if false, if this statement is false, that it means there will be a print string saying no random amount set. If true, then we put it in a while loop, which the condition for this is the current random amount, and then the total random tiles, the total random tiles on the level, and it's less than, which is the condition. For the loop body, we'll set it to an index that is to index to randomize, which is then connected to which the condition for that is a randomizer for this node. Then we set the tile to then we set to a tile has effect, which is going to be checked off as true, which is the target, and the target for it is the random tile and the index to randomize, which you're going to get to make that the target. And then we have another branch, which the condition is the tile loses effect, which we have marked up as true. And if false, we set it to tile loss, which is not true. And the target is the random tiles and the index random to randomize. And if true, then the effect this is marked up as true. The the tile loses effect is marked up as true. And then we set it to the number of total uses, which is connected to the amount of times that it can be used, which is 1. And then both of these branches for these two are then connected to a remove index node, which is then has the array at the target array as random tiles and the index to remove as our index to randomize, which we have our remove index set to our current random amount, which our integer is going to be the current random amount added up 1. And that's it for our blueprint. So if we wanted to if I wanted to, let's say add another randomized tile random to the level, I can have it to where if I go here, I can have it to where one tile one tile gives an effect, and the amount of times each one can be used is twice, with a 50% chance of an effect happening. So if we go ahead and play the level, we can now see that sorry, no luck, which means this is a tile that has no effect at all since only 2 of them, or is it one of them, have an effect, and this one gives off the effect, and that's 1 time you use it, that's 2 times, that's 3, and then after the 2 times, we can't use it no more because that's that we already used the amount of uses that we have set already in the variable in the default section. So that means this one is nothing as well like the first random tile. So that's pretty much how that procedure tile works. And that's it for my driver presentation.